Welcome everybody to CFES Brilliant Pathway Manufacturers Week, looking at STEM education and career opportunities. We are very fortunate today to have three college presidents with us, along with one of our program directors, John Rydell. What I'd like to ask is each of our panelists, if you could introduce yourself, speak a little bit about your school programs, and kind of initially, because we're talking to students, I think it's really enjoyable for them to hear about your pathway and the different things that you've done and how you've ended up where you are. And then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of, actual manufacturing opportunities through your schools. We have President Ray DePasquale from Clinton Community College here in Plattsburgh, New York. I'm going to ask you, Ray, if you could please start out and give us a little background, and then we'll jump to the next panelist.
Thank you, Chris. And hello, everyone, and good afternoon. And it's a pleasure to be here. We're Clinton Community College in Plattsburgh, New York. Our campus actually sits on beautiful Lake Champlain. As I look out my windows at the lake, we see the Green Mountains of Vermont. It's a wonderful, beautiful campus, and most recently we have a 30,000 square foot institution for advanced manufacturing facility, which has been called actually the gold standard for manufacturing facilities. So Clinton is at the forefront of helping our businesses in the North Country be trained and learning additional skills for the workers that are there, and then hopefully for incoming students to introduce you to the manufacturing careers that are booming in our area and throughout the country. So it's a pleasure to be here. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in upstate New York in a small town called Mount Morris near Rochester, New York, and never thought for a second that I would be a college president. Most of my life, athletics was a big part of it. I went to school in Arkansas to play football, left there and went to Northeastern in Boston and kind of traveled all over the place. So I've worked in community colleges, I've worked at four-year colleges, and ultimately had the wonderful opportunity because my goal was to become a coach. And today being a college president is very much like being a coach. It's taking your players and bringing them together, putting strategies together, and doing what's best. And most importantly, we're in these jobs, and I'm sure you'll hear from my colleagues, for one reason, to make sure that we provide an outstanding education in preparing you, our students, for achieving your dreams. I know you all have dreams, as all of us do, and our goal today is to help you maybe look differently at some of the careers that are out there and help you achieve your dreams and look for a bright future as you begin to think about what's next for you as you enter higher education. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to answering lots of questions and telling you about the various programs that we offer here at Clinton Community College as well. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Ray. Geez, if I'd have known that. We did a coach's corner on Friday afternoon. I should have invited you as a panelist.
Absolutely.
So President Duffy from SUNY Adirondack.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. As I sit with my Zoom background, it looks as if I'm floating above my campus, which SUNY Adirondack Community College, which is located in Queensbury, New York, just at the tip of the Adirondack Park, right near Lake George, the queen of America's lakes, so to speak. And we serve about 3,000 students in our region, both in Queensbury and Warren County, as well as a satellite campus in Saratoga County. We've been around over 60 years, and we too offer a variety of options for students, which we'll talk a little bit more about as we proceed in this conference with you. Just a little bit about me, like Ray, I don't think when I graduated from high school, I would have even dreamt of the idea of being a college president. And as you can see, presidencies sort of happen over a career, which I think is an important lesson for you as you think about your future. Every corner that I turned was only because I raised my hand and said, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds interesting. Oh, sure, I'll join in on that committee. That sounds interesting. And although we all like to believe that we can set a plan and it's all going to go as perfect as we'd like, typically things happen to people when they look for opportunity and are willing to kind of stretch themselves. And as I often say to students, to kind of work out of your comfort zone. And so this is my 8th year as president of SUNY Adirondack. I spent most of my career in higher education. At one point, I was a school counselor. And I've mostly worked in the community college sector, which I absolutely love. I love what we do. I love what we're about, which is to provide access to anyone who's interested in working in higher, or to be in higher education and to pursue their dreams. And we make it affordable and accessible to anyone. We meet students where they are, what their goals may be, may change. Some students need a little more time to complete a degree. Other students just move right through. And that's what I love about the community college, because we serve all types of students. And I'm sure many of you have unique stories, and that's what makes our community a great community of learners. So I look forward to more conversations with you, and I'll turn it back to our moderator and let my colleague Todd introduce himself. Thank you.
I think I'm going to let John introduce Todd, as they grew up together in Vermont.
Yeah, when we were thinking about this panel, I thought, we talked about names and presidents. I thought of Todd right away. It's interesting to hear you two both talk about your pathway there. And I know Todd certainly wasn't thinking he'd be a college president either, but, he went to high school in Virgins right across the lake here. And Todd, I always remember he was a couple years older than me. He always worked really hard. Grew up, didn't come from a lot, but he constantly worked hard. And his pathway I found real interesting because he took a kind of a different pathway. And eventually, I think it's real pertinent to this conversation. He's been a plant manager of massive plants across the country, Baxter International for one, and was served on different boards and got an opportunity to serve as president at Southern Union State Community College in Opelika. It was kind of right near Auburn. But I just, my father was a professor, so I kind of always looked at the academic path, and I thought, well, might be a good idea to hire somebody who actually worked in the industry that that they're going to become president over. And it's a good mix of both, of course. But I thought Todd would bring that interesting perspective to it. So I'd love it, Todd, if you could share a little bit with your background and what's going on there.
Sure. Thanks, John. So first of all, a little about the school. Southern Union State Community College is here in Alabama, East Alabama. We're only about 70 minutes from Atlanta, so pretty accessible to the big city. We've got 3 campuses serving roughly 4,500 students, with programs encompassing academic transfer, health science, and technical education. We recently put up another state-of-the-art technical building here in Opelika with robotics, and given some of the programs we offer. Like John said, I never thought I'd be a president of a university or college as early as 3 years ago. I've been here 2.5 years, and it came about by chance. I started my career in manufacturing 35, 40 years ago. Like John said, I didn't have a whole lot. My family was in public housing for a while, food stamps, welfare, you name it. So when it came time to go to college, I found a college that offered a way to work and go to school. So for 5 years, earning my engineering degree, I would work 3 months in a factory and then go to school for 3 months. And my career progressed. I started sweeping floors and loading boxes, driving forklifts. Eventually, I learned how to run machines. I learned to become a technician. I supervised people. I worked in HR, IT, finance, and eventually the last 2 years of my education, I worked in engineering programs doing projects and so forth. So when I came out of that, I had a very good leader who convinced me to try management, which I did not want to do, but I did. I found out I actually liked it, continued on with my education, and they paid for it, by the way, which is something we want to tell our students is you get a job in manufacturing, most of these companies will help pay for school. So it's something to keep in mind. I came out debt-free with 3 degrees by following a manufacturing path. So anyways, I did that for several years. As John said, I ran factories in a few different states, mostly in medical device manufacturing. And then about 3 years ago, they were looking for a president here at Southern Union. They wanted somebody to really focus on workforce development. One thing led to another. I applied, and here I am. And my focus, whether you're academic transfer, health science, it's all about workforce development. When you leave us, which is a very affordable pathway, for $12,000, you get a 2-year degree. We can get you careers earning $50,000, $75,000, $85,000 a year debt-free. So that's what we want to talk about today is some of those careers in manufacturing. It was a great path for me, and much like was mentioned earlier, I came out of my comfort zone several times, moving into management, moving into projects, but I kept kept raising my hand, and things went well.
You know, that's a great story, and it's a great pathway for our kids. You know, many of our rural kids, as a former high school president, do not, as a high school principal, excuse me, don't realize the careers they can have in rural areas, and the potential to go to a 2-year school, and do, you know, things that you like to do. You know, I want to lead in is, you know, as a former physics teacher and a math background, there are so many careers in STEM, you know, and as students, sometimes it's hard for them to understand the value of what you have to do to attain these careers. So, you know, if each of you could just touch base, you know, what kind of skills would you encourage our students to work at to attain careers in STEM and in manufacturing? And anybody can take that.
Well, I think the skills that you bring to a job, there's two types, right? There's the personal skills and there's the technical skills. I was talking to John earlier today, and this is advice I gave my own children. The first thing you do is show up every day. If you show up and you prove yourself to be a reliable employee, you're automatically one of the best employees that company has. So first of all, be reliable, show up every day. The second skill or trait you should have is be respectful to everybody, not just your boss or your colleagues, but the people cleaning the bathrooms, the people that work in the cafeteria. Be somebody that people want to see succeed. And the third thing, this is where the technical part likely comes in, is be a problem solver. And the bigger problem you can solve for an institution or an organization, the more money you'll make. If you can solve a problem of a dirty floor, that's one problem. But if you can keep a production line running and solve a robotic issue and save that company thousands or millions of dollars, you're going to be compensated at a much higher rate.
I'm just going to piggyback a little bit on Todd's comment about problem solving. You know, I think STEM gets a lot of attention, and rightly so. But I especially given the age that you all are at, don't let that intimidate you either. And look at especially math. I think, you know, math can be intimidating for some students. It's a breeze. For other students, it's challenging. And I think sometimes we get very caught up in the actual math problem versus the skill that math is going to help you hone, which is problem solving. And it's hard to see that sometimes, because when you're grinding through your homework and it's not making sense, and you feel frustrated, you feel like, why am I doing this math thing? But it's really about developing a problem solving mindset that certainly is important in manufacturing. I mean, you think about manufacturing, you're making things, you're trying to solve a problem. The problem could be, you know, a gear that doesn't work in a machine, to everything you can imagine. So just thinking about how do I solve problems is really what's not only if you're in manufacturing, any industry, you know, as college presidents, it feels like we're solving problems every 5 minutes. And you're always trying to use that skill set. The other thing is being able to, your essential skills, and some call them soft skills and personal skills and essential skills. But I love what you said about, you know, showing up but perseverance, you know, sticking to things even when they're hard. That's when you grow the most as a person. It's when you learn the most. So, you know, sometimes it's frustrating and you got to kind of brush yourself up and off and get up the next day and do it again. But sticking to things that are hard are just going to help develop you as a person. It builds character, but also builds your skill set as you're going forward. So STEM should not intimidate you. There are many aspects of that. Science, of course, covers a broad range of industries. Don't get too caught up in what industry you want to get in. In other words, you know, what company are you going to work for, but really developing some of those skills that we just talked about so that the world is open to you. But without those basic skills, it's going to be frustrating, and it will limit the number of doors that are open.
Just, my two colleagues couldn't have said it any better, and the essential skills that will help you as you go forward. But the other piece, and I won't repeat any of them because they're spot on. The next piece, though, is the potential of doing college and doing training while you're actually in high school. And all of us offer the ability to be able to explore a little bit. Such things as manufacturing day, where you get an opportunity to either virtually or visit a college campus and test and actually try some of the machines, see how the robotics machines and the 3D printers work and how a lathe works and all of the equipment. So what we're doing a lot of is inviting young students to come on campus, and either virtually or in person. We're beginning to do a little bit more in person, and hopefully, by the time you're ready, we'll be able to get you on campus and let you experience a little bit the opportunities of manufacturing. It surprises everyone what a clean environment it is and how different it is today than manufacturing has ever been. It's fun when you watch the students and they're on the machines and they're learning them. It makes you excited. So it's a wonderful opportunity, to compliment my colleagues and what they've offered to you, but to also think about the potential of looking at colleges nearby and beginning to sample a little bit, to test and see opportunities that you may have never thought of. And so we welcome you with the opportunities to come visit, either virtually or in person. And again, keep in mind that it's important to begin to build a lot of those basic skills in mathematics, as you heard from our colleagues, because that's an integral part of this. But analytical thinking, the businesses tell us often, the students come prepared, they're smart, but they can't solve problems. And they're really looking for people who are good problem solvers. You've heard that. And hopefully, along the way, that's what our teachers are going to do. They're going to help you learn how to solve problems. So we look forward to continuing to tell you some of the wonderful opportunities that are out there. But I think you've heard of what are the basic skills that will prepare you a little bit better as you begin to look at career opportunities.
Okay. One of the things, each of these three schools were asked, because you have strong programs in manufacturing, to present today. Tell us a little bit about your programs and how do they support the jobs in your communities? Ray, if you can just keep going,
Okay.
It would be great.
Yeah, we're very fortunate, and again, just a little bit more about where we are. We're not far from the Canadian border, so a lot of the businesses that are here, like Bombardier and Nova Bus, are actually Canadian companies, but they're here in this side of the border, and we do a lot of training for some of the biggest transportation companies in the world. They come to us with asking, can we do training with you? Can you help us train our skilled workforce? So when you look at companies from Swarovski, the lighting company that does makes amazing chandeliers for casinos and pro athletes and all kinds of people for their homes, to Bombardier that actually does transportation and works with our buses, to Nova Bus that actually builds buses and ships them all over the world. They actually do another company called Prevo that they have provides buses for some of the biggest rock stars in the country. And imagine building a bus that somebody who's out there in the real world is going to be able to use. President Obama actually bought 2 of those when he was on his campaign trail many years ago. So lots of companies and lots of working directly with the colleges. Today, programs like computer information systems and environmental technology and renewable energy, wind energy and turbine technology. Wind energy is just growing by leaps and bounds, and they're looking for students who can repair the turbines and build them and troubleshoot them. And so the opportunities are kind of endless. And with the particular companies that are in the area, they look to us to hire their people. They come to us for initial training. And in many cases, we're really talking about kind of a 3-pronged approach. While you're in high school, in learning skill sets that you can be going to college at the same time. You can be learning skills that will prepare you, getting certifications and that will give you that kind of head start on jobs. So working with colleges early in your education and as you transfer into higher education will give you that head start and heads up with being hired by many of the companies in the area. They're really looking for students who are motivated, want to learn, and again, good problem solvers. So lots of wonderful opportunities based on the needs. These companies are growing. Even in the pandemic, they've been doing lots of training. And so they're there and willing and able to hopefully excite you about the opportunities to work for them as well.
President Duffy, how about in the Southern Adirondacks?
So actually the history of our community, we were the birth of medical devices, particularly the catheter, which have saved many people's lives and being able to help their heart pump the blood that they need. So a long-standing history in our community about manufacturing. Finch Paper, which is one of the oldest paper processing plants in the country, was been in Glens Falls since the 1800s. You know, because we're near the Adirondacks and timber was always a commodity that was available, paper processing is a big part of manufacturing, not only for paper that you put in your copier or your computer, but also paper products, which is Irving Tissue near us. So we have a history of having manufacturing in the community. And the college partnered with our manufacturers to help us develop a program that we call Mechatronics, which is a combination of mechanical, electrical, and computer technologies. As my colleague often calls as the sort of utility infielder. You know, the technician of today, it doesn't necessarily specialize in just one area. They tend to have to know a little bit about everything. And so our mechatronics program is an opportunity to bring those multiple skill sets and knowledge bases together into one degree program. And that was created exactly working with the employers saying, what do you need? And they helped us develop that curriculum. So that's a 2-year program where students can study in those areas and are very marketable for good paying jobs. As my colleague indicated earlier, we have students that can be hired at $40,000, $50,000 coming out of an associate degree program. Sometimes that's more than what people might make with a 4-year degree program. So if this is an area that interests you, the jobs are there, employers are anxious and willing to work with you throughout your education. In fact, we've worked with our employer partners so that students can even do a summer job in between their studies with us so that they can get their foot in the door. The employer gets to know you and you get to know the employer to see if this is the right fit for you. We also have our early college program, which I know Ray's talked a lot about engaging with your local college. Ours is in partnership with BOCES. For those of the students in the audience that are from New York are very familiar with BOCES. And we do kind of a 2-pronged approach. You take some of your technical courses with BOCES, but on our college campus, while you're also beginning your college education. Students leave our early college program with 30 college credits. Half of their degree program is completed by the time they've graduated from high school. They stay with us for another year, and now they've earned a 2-year degree at no cost to the student. So imagine you're not just debt-free, you have no debt, no investment tuition-wise at all, it's paid for you. And I always like to use my favorite story. One of our students had completed the manufacturing track. He came to us, finished 1 more year, got hired by Global Foundries, which is a large chip fab manufacturing site about 20 minutes south of us. He was making money and he also had this thing called a 401 and he didn't really know what that was. It's his retirement plan. At 21 years old, he's already paying into a retirement system. And he thought that was the most incredible thing he could imagine, is that at 21 years old, he's making a good salary, but also paying into his future out of just a 2-year degree program that he started with Adirondack. So there's a lot of interest in employers wanting to do sort of a earn and learn type of environment where you're taking your courses, but you're also earning money while you're completing your education. And again, testing out the employer that you might get to work for, they're testing you out. And it gives you real world experience while you're completing your higher education degree. So Adirondack has, you know, those programs to be able to help students not only get their foot in the door, but also to pursue an excellent career path for their future.
Wonderful. Todd, how about Southern Union?
Okay, so Southern Union has several programs, and we're very fortunate to be located in an area that's grown economically over the past 20 years in manufacturing. A lot of that driven by automotive. Both Kia and Hyundai are about 30 miles away from us on either direction. So you've seen a lot of tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers come up. But the wisdom of our leaders of this area, they've diversified. They're not strictly automotive. They've got medical device manufacturing. They've got nutraceuticals. They've got aerospace. There's all sorts of different industries here. So if there's a dip in the economy, we've been able to weather it pretty well. Just talking about the manufacturing environment that was mentioned earlier by Ray, it's changed a lot. When I started my career, manufacturing was a little bit, dingy and dangerous and noisy, but that's all changed. Now it's all very high tech. It's the only way it can be competitive. And a lot of the work, the physical work, is done by equipment and technology. So we're looking for people who are comfortable with equipment and technology and can take care of it and do maintenance and troubleshooting and things of that nature. So the work is more up here than in your hands. So that's something to keep in mind. From maybe what you may have heard from relatives who worked in manufacturing years ago, it's a very different environment. And you heard mechatronics. That is the booming career path for a lot of our students. It's probably the most in-demand program for our employers. We place 100% of our students into positions. They're begging us for more. We don't have enough people coming in the building to satisfy the demand. So we're trying to recruit as many students like yourselves to let them know these are fantastic careers. And what's going to make that even worse is a lot of people that are doing these jobs today are in their 50s or late 50s, and they're looking to retire in the next 5 to 10 years, which is only going to leave the gap bigger. And of course, with supply and demand, that means the wages are likely to go even higher. And I have a success story I'd like to share of a young man who worked for me when I was plant manager. He was one of our apprentices. So I'm a big advocate of work-based learning. If you get to an apprenticeship program where you can earn money while you're learning and network with those companies and those employees, it's a big positive. This young man came to us as an apprentice, earned more than enough to pay for his education. And then when he graduated, he hired on full-time to the company after I'd left. He never made less than $85,000 a year. And the company put him through and got his bachelor's degree in engineering while he was there. So now here's a young man, he's 24 now. He's got a nice home, he's got a nice paycheck, also putting away for 401k, and did it all debt-free. So those paths are out there. They're not necessarily easy, but they're there if you're committed.
Wonderful. You want to take that question, John?
Yeah, that's fascinating. We were talking about this. I had the fortunate opportunity to go down to Alabama and look at Southern Union's facilities, and I was blown away. And I know you two both have as well great facilities, but I was just I think this whole concept, and kids today, when I talk to them about manufacturing, they're not even entirely sure what it is. Like what is manufacturing? They think of their grandfather from 1960 and this grinding it out in this mill or something. And you go into these places and they're so high tech, they're so clean. It's, and like Todd said, it's a lot more up here. It's hands as well. But I think that I'd love to hear each of you, if you feel like you're struggling a little bit with trying to get the concept of what manufacturing is, what a job would look like for a young person. Because I get I'll push it and the kid will say, that's great, but what would I do? Like when I go to work at 9 a.m. or second shift with her, what am I actually doing? Because they do have this image of 9 hours in a sweatshop, But so I'd love to hear a little bit about the reality of it and your thoughts on trying to get that concept across to millennials, especially.
Sure. What I always liked about manufacturing, particularly in a technical role, like a mechatronics role, I was a mechanical engineer early in my career, is the variety. It wasn't routine. It was something different every day. But typical day, you might come in, you look at the previous shift's performance and see where they might have issues. It could be there's a machine down and you have to go and help diagnose and get the machine running. If things are running well, typically that's when a technician would work on what we call preventative maintenance. It's like you have done in your car, you have the oil changed, you might rotate the tires. Equipment that make product is no different. It has to be taken care of. And typically there's a list of procedures and and things that have to be done, and you would do that. And that's a good day when you're working on preventative maintenance. But most of the time in manufacturing, the reality is things happen that weren't expected, and time is money. The factory I ran most recently, this is early on before we expanded, it was $150 a minute when that factory went down, and it cost money. So the faster you could fix that problem, the more money you saved, the better the profit for the company and better job security for you. So what I liked about it was very active, could be stressful, don't get me wrong, but it was always to me a challenge. I love problem solving. It was almost like doing a puzzle every day. How do you solve this puzzle as efficiently as possible? But you typically have a toolbox. If you're a mechatronics technician, you'd have a laptop. All these machines are run by computer controlled. So you'd be looking through a program to see what's not happening. And you may have to replace a part, you may have to replace a pump or a motor. But again, it's variety, and it's very safe and very clean.
And I would only add, and Todd, you certainly have more hands-on experience than I would in the environment, but it's also teamwork. Everyone has a role, but as part of that, work that you do on a daily basis, you're working with someone from a different department. Well, what happened here? And so that ability to work with others, be able to listen to differing opinions and different ideas are going to make you even that much more successful in any environment, and certainly in a manufacturing environment where each element of the work has its own role. And if one part of that isn't working, you've got to figure that all out and how it impacts each other. So teamwork is a really important skill, but also important part of your daily work.
If I could add that just one bit, it was probably the best part of the job for me, is being part of a team, getting something done. At the end of the day, you could see how well you did, because you get measured very carefully in manufacturing. But it also provides an opportunity for leadership. You can be a leader within your team, a go-to person, a reliable person, but that creates a lot of professional opportunities for you as well. You can take that 2-year degree and have your company pay for your 4-year degree in something like management or business. Hone your leadership skills, and pretty soon you could be a department manager or a technical manager, plant manager. There's really no end to what the possibilities could be.
One more little piece is, when you go into work in the morning, it depends on the production. You may be producing a particular product and you have to program the robots, you have to program the 3D printers. So a lot of it is programming, looking at the task of the day and then organizing it. And much as my colleagues have said, and it's bringing a team together to do that, and then looking at a finished product that you helped design, you helped program. And it's important because when you talk about manufacturing, again, you are the person that's actually putting in the program, typing in the instructions to the robots, typing in the instructions to the printers on how to manufacture something. And it's pretty cool to watch when you've done that and then have the machine take over and produce something that you told it what to do, and here's the finished product. So a lot of that is understanding, and again, goes back to those basic skills of learning math and all the skill sets we've been talking about. But manufacturing today is exciting. I saw a quick question pop up on the screen about, I'm interested in wind and turbines, but I don't like heights. I don't want to climb up to that huge tower. So what would I do? The question is a great question, because you actually could learn how to build them and never climb a tower. You can learn how to repair them. And again, a lot of the components are not at the top of the tower. So learning the skill sets that you need in electronics and robotics and other fields would be very important. You could still go into the field and never have to climb a tower if you didn't want to.
That was a great question.
Chris, that might be a good segue, because I'm hearing both talk about, Christine, everybody, leadership, teamwork. So these essential skills that CFES really pushes, otherwise known as soft skills. We have partnerships, corporate partnerships with like Southwest Airlines and GE, and they'll say, to all of your points, we can get a student there and they know we can teach them the job, but they lack communication skills. We're struggling with them working in teams. I know, Chris, you were going to touch a little bit on that. It seems like we teach them, but it's a difficult skill to sometimes get for kids to get their heads around the importance of it.
I think and I wish I could recall one of the webinars we did this year, and I don't remember exactly what it was. But within your manufacturing curriculum and the programs, obviously they're going to have tech, math, and they're going to have some physics and the basic things. And then are there any other courses that they are required to take, like public speaking or something along the lines to enhance those essential skills to support what the manufacturers want in your graduates?
Yeah, we do have a requirement for communication class as one of our English requirements. I have a lunch every month with several students, and we talk about careers, and we just talk about what we can do to make the college better for them. And one young man, he's a welding student of mine, and he said, well, why do I have to take communications? I just want to weld. I said, well, think about this. Let's say you have a great idea for some new welding project. If you can't explain that to your manager, you won't be as effective. I said, but think about this. Someday you want to go out on your own and start your own welding company. You've got to be able to explain to the bank about what you're going to do and how to pay off that loan and how to get the loan. So being able to communicate is critical for any position. So we definitely focused on that. We're also looking at critical thinking and analytical problem solving, making that part of the requirements as well. Some techniques like Six Sigma techniques or DMAIC techniques. It just gives you a logical way of working through a problem and making sure you understand all the elements you have to consider.
And I would just add that many of our courses, and I'm sure my colleagues would agree, also have project-based type of learning. So typically there are group projects where you have to work with your teammates in your class to be able to develop a solution to a problem and then present that back out to your class. So it may not be as many extra courses. It's really embedded in the curriculum to create an environment where students are constantly honing that communication skill. The early college program, I typically meet the students when they start with us as juniors, and then by the time they finish their senior year, their confidence, their presentation skills are far ahead of many students coming out of high school, and I would dare to say even some in college, because that's what they've been required to do. Every single class is about how do you communicate that information. Also building in opportunities to partner with a local employer. They will give us a problem they're trying to solve, and then students are broken into groups to be able to create some sort of solution and bring it back to the employer. I mean, these are real employers that are now having an opportunity to work directly with you as a student. So I think a lot of it gets built into the curriculum naturally, in addition to some of the courses that have been described.
I have a question for my fellow panelists here. Have you implemented the FAME program on either of your campuses? Have you looked into that? It's the Federation for Advanced Manufacturing Education. We just started this year. I call it an apprenticeship program on steroids. We actually partner with 12 local companies, and they lead the effort. They recruit the students, and we train the students in class. They work Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the job. They come here Tuesdays and Thursdays, full days, full 9-hour days. They can earn up to $35,000 during the course of their education. You're going to pay for not only their tuition, but their room and board. And it's very difficult, very challenging, I should say, because you are held to a very high standard. You have to work as a team. You have to present formally to management at your employer. You have a special uniform you wear. To me, if I could go back in time, 40 years, I would have done this program, because I think it's just a phenomenal. They're looking for their future business leaders in manufacturing. So I encourage you to look at it, and I encourage the students that are listening, look at it. If you get an opportunity we just did it, this is our first year, and we're starting our second cohort this fall.
That's great.
It sounds like a great program. And for all of our students out there listening in the Adirondacks, if that does come to our two respective local community college, we encourage it. Hopefully we'll see some Gear Up students in that program. I wanted, we're running a little bit out of time, but I think it's important. There are a lot of manufacturing centers in rural areas, and people think that the rural parts of the country are drying up. And, for students who are living in rural areas and lower income situations, what words of encouragement can you give them to get on a path that we've talked about for the last 35 minutes? You know, how can you encourage them to stick with it, look into this stuff, and give yourself a better opportunity to be successful from where you are now?
I think there's two things that I encourage they look at. First of all, have an idea of the goal. I mean, not exact goal, but somewhat where you want to be, say 3-5 years from now. But realize it's a series of very small incremental steps. It's not a mountain. It's a lot of small steps. A lot of our programs, you can get certifications, short-term certificates that are stackable to large-term certificates, and they're stackable into your degree plan. So you can actually get a job after your first or second semester in your field if that's what you choose to do. But more often than not, the students realize that, hey, I can do this. So they keep going and they eventually get that degree. So the other thing is realize that the schools are here to help you. There's all sorts of opportunities with financial aid, apprenticeships, scholarships. We will find a way to help you get that degree and encourage you to talk to your local colleges to see how we can help you. There's nothing we want to see more than see you succeed, not just to get the degree, but in your career and your life.
I guess I would just say you're not defined by where you live. And I would even dare to say that one of the things that the COVID-19 pandemic taught us is that remote work is still available. Now, I recognize that we're talking about manufacturing today, and typically people are in a location, but it doesn't mean there aren't other opportunities to support large corporations with good paying jobs in remote work. And I do think that will become more a part of our future world of work than we ever would have anticipated 9 months ago. So that's number one. But number two, I just would pick up on, take advantage of what is available at your school. Programs like CFES are exactly what is intended to help students who may not see as many opportunities around them to open up your eyes to the world around you. So, don't be afraid that, I can't see it right in my backyard doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so taking advantage of opportunities like this and continuing to just open your mind to, new opportunities, whether they be within your school, whether they be in your surrounding community, just keep that open mind. Like I said, push yourself out of your comfort zone because there are opportunities out there for anyone who wants to take advantage of them.
Just adding to my colleagues and Chris, really, directing your question, which is a good one, is, you've heard throughout the course of this discussion, that opportunities are there and not to be afraid to look at them. I often say, the window's open, look through it, explore, do some research, check it out, come visit us. And today you met 3 college presidents. You know us now. Write us and say, hey, can you help me? I'm interested in this. As the question came up about, wind and turbines. And John, as you said, if I want to know more about where does this lead for a job? That's why we're here. And I think all 3 presidents have said very clearly, we're here for one reason. That's to help you achieve your dream, get excited about a career. Everything is out there. Every opportunity is available. And our jobs are to help you find that opportunity, and we're here for you. And you want to call us, you want to write us, you want to email us, text us, and it's all there. But the windows of opportunity are open for you. We're excited to maybe have gotten you a little bit excited about possibilities. But again, from the 3 of us, thank you for listening, and we look forward to helping you find your career pathway to wherever that might be. And back to you, Chris.
Well, if I can make one more comment about career pathways, the more flexible you are and open you are to stretching your boundaries, the more opportunities you'll have. I grew up in a small town with John up in Vermont, 2,000 people, but my career took me several jobs here in this country and all over the world. If you told me when I was 18 years old that I'd been to Asia and Europe and Latin America, I never would have believed you, and it led me to that.
Just getting out of Addison County was a feat back then.
That's right.
Yeah, just one quick comment. Just hearing, our students, and we'll share this with all of our students, but you just heard 3 college presidents say, we want you, we need you. We tell our students right now that this couldn't be much of a better time in decades that I can think of, that schools, they need students, they need you, and kids that don't think they're quote unquote college material, well, they are. We try and convince them that they are. And once they hear you, all presidents, saying you are capable, come here and we'll help you get a job. I mean, that's pretty powerful for them to hear. So we really appreciate you three coming on and doing that.
Well,
Sorry, I was muted. Lastly, I would just like to add, with the experience of having worked in a middle and high school as a school leader, students that are listening and are eventually going to get a chance to watch this in full when some of you get back into your classrooms, talk to your school counselors about dual enrollment programs. The students who start taking college courses at their local community college, one, have much more success when they get on their campuses, but they also have they develop the skill set, the problem solving, all the kind of things that we talked about to be prepared. And oftentimes the school you're taking the courses from, you get to go visit that school and you get to see what's on that campus. So I know we have a lot of middle school kids and early high school kids listening to this. Talk to your counselor about dual enrollment coursework. I want to thank all of our panelists. This has been awesome. I'll give a quick shout out to our next plan. We are going to have a webinar coming up in a month or so, titled Why Two-Year Colleges Are a Great Choice. So we'll be working with your staffs and hopefully get some other people that are on your campuses to talk about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.